Simon Ombogi.
Maria.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Professor.
In this matter, I'm Hassan Nanto. I continue appearing for the seventh accused person. Mr. Orlando ordinarily appears for the second accused person. He requested Mr. Ongaro to hold his brief. Ongaro is present in court, although he is not feeling well. Mr. Stephen Ongaro appears for the fourth accused person. For the third accused person. Mr. Gitonga, Your Honor, appears for is present in court. He appears for the fifth and sixth accused persons. The prosecution is represented by Mr. Mumanyi, who is also present in court.
Good morning, Your Honor. Morning.
The matter is coming up for judgment, Your Honor. We are ready to take the judgment of this honorable court. Yes, the first and third and fourth accused persons appear in person. I believe they are also in the judgment of this honorable court.
Kuna mwenye elewi kizungu vizuri? Mshtakiwa wa nini amenyamaza?
Naelewa.
Okay. It is a long one. It will take a very long time to finish. So just relax and think. We might finish past 11. Saturday, the time is a joke, relax to stop it. Thank you for accommodating me. I kept on putting it off because it's not an easy judgment because of the body. What I have written, I have typed. So within 10 minutes, at the end of the record session, I'll be able to publish it, and then you'll get it online. On the council link, isn't it?
Yes, we are on.
So you'll get it within 5 minutes. Within 10 minutes from the end of the sitting.
We really appreciate it.
Yes. You want me to read everything or something?
In light of that, Your Honor, we can go to the summary and find out the court findings of the honorable court. We will get the typed copy and interrogate it accordingly.
Sometimes reading the one thing assists. You proofreading also. Notice some typographical errors and correct as you move along. So I would prefer to read everything. Kama kuna mwenye hataki nisome yote kabisa.
Mheshimiwa, nafunga mkono pia somo.
Sawa. The 7 accused persons here, namely Eric Uyera Isabwa, alias Chairman, Raphael Imani Kashi, alias Kimbuja, Mustafa Imani Anyon, alias Musto, Stephen Askiva Lipapo, alias Chokore, Jane Wanjiru Kamau, alias Shiro, Margaret Njeri Shuri, and Simon Wambugu Ishamba, who are the first, second, third, fourth, sixth, and seventh accused persons, respectively, face a number of counts. Each of the first 3 counts is of robbery with violence, contrary to section 296, subsection 2 of the Penal Code. Particulars of the first count are that the 7 accused persons hearing on the 6th day of February 2015 at about 22:00 hours along Waiyaki Way in Nairobi, within Nairobi County, jointly with others not before court while armed with dangerous weapons, namely G3 rifle and pistols, robbed Michael Ngatia Katuto, a motor vehicle registration number KBF 796A Nissan Sunny, beige in color, valued at Kenya shillings 400,000, a gas cylinder valued at Kenya shillings 4,000, and a Nokia mobile phone, IMEI number 355093044040160, valued at Kenya shillings 8,000, and a Nokia mobile phone, IMEI number 3589650513182660, valued at Kenya shillings 4,000, all valued at Kenya shillings 416,000, and at the time of such robbery threatened to use actual violence to the said Michael Ngatia Gatuto. Particulars of count number 2 are that the 7 accused persons hearing on the 7th day of February 2015 at about 0015 hours at Greenbelt Estate in Wangige area within Nairobi County, jointly with others not before court while armed with dangerous weapons, namely a G3 rifle and pistols, robbed Gladys Waidera of a motor vehicle registration number KBE 464L, make Toyota Spatio, metallic grey in color, valued at Kenya shillings 600,000, a mobile phone, make Samsung Galaxy S3 Neo, email number 356217060326030, valued at Kenya shillings 32,000, a laptop, make Compact, valued at Kenya shillings 36,000, in cash, Kenya shillings 1,000, all valued at Kenya shillings 669,000, and at the time of such robbery threatened to use actual violence to the said Gladys Waidera. Particulars of the third count are that the 7 accused persons hearing on the 7th day of February 2015 at 0015 hours at Greenbelt Estate in Wangige area within Kiambu County, jointly with others not before court, while armed with dangerous weapons, namely a G3 rifle and pistols, robbed Irene Ndoni Mbui, a mobile phone made Huawei ID number 8666254010865040, valued at Kenya shillings 15,000, and cash Kenya shillings 600, all valued at Kenya shillings 15,000. And at the time of such robbery, threatened to use actual violence to the said Irene Muthoni Wambui. Counts number 4 and count number 5 are against the first and the sixth accused persons hearing. Count 4 is of being in possession of a firearm without a firearm certificate, contrary to section 4, subsection 2A, as read with section 4, subsection 3B of the Firearms Act, chapter 114 of the laws of Kenya, particulars of which are that the first and the sixth accused persons on the 13th day of February 2015 at area 87 Kinoo within Kiambu County, jointly with others not before court, were unlawfully found in possession of a firearm, namely a G3 rifle, serial number KP 6927317 without a firearm certificate. Count number 5 is of possession of ammunition without firearm certificate, contrary to section 4, subsection 2A, as read with section 4, subsection 3B of the Firearms Act, chapter 114 of the laws of Kenya, whose particulars are that the first and sixth accused persons on the 13th day of February 2015 at area 87 Kinoo within Kiambu County, jointly with others not before court, were unlawfully found in possession of 7 rounds of 7.62 millimeter caliber ammunition without a firearm certificate. Count numbers 6 and 7 are against the second accused person hearing. Count 6 is of being in possession of firearm without a firearm certificate, contrary to section 4, subsection 2A, as read with section 3, subsection 3B of the Firearms Act, chapter 114 of the laws of Kenya, particulars of which are that the second accused person on the 13th day of February 2015 at Rironi within Kiambu County, jointly with others not before court, was unlawfully found in possession of a Seska pistol, serial number G4726 without a firearm certificate. Count number 7 is of being in possession of ammunition without firearm certificate, contrary to section 4, subsection 2A, as read with section 4, subsection 3B of the Firearms Act, chapter 114 of the laws of Kenya, particulars of which are that the second accused person on the 13th day of February 2015 at Rironi within Kiambu County, jointly with others not before court, was unlawfully found in possession of 15 rounds of 9mm caliber ammunition without a firearm certificate. The 8th count is against the 5th accused person and is a charge of being in possession of ammunition without firearm certificate, contrary to section 4, subsection 2A, as read with section 4, subsection 3B of the Firearms Act. Particulars of which are that on the 13th day of February 2015 at Kanyamanga area in Kangemi within Nairobi County, jointly with others not before court, was unlawfully found in possession of 2 rounds of 9mm ammunition that was left, and another one went to the passenger seat as another sat on the driver's seat. A total of 4 men entered the vehicle with him. He was in the middle of the back seat and was ordered to bend down completely, and he complied. Inside the motor vehicle, he stated he had some shopping. His wife had left her bag with phone at the back. He had a Meko gas cylinder. When he was asked to move to the rear seat, he stated he left the car keys on the ignition. Those people drove off, entered Wayaki Road, and turned to the right towards Udhiru. While in the car, the only conversation they had was when they told him that they had been sent to kill him for moving around with people's wives, which he denied. The vehicle then entered a rough road and he was told to enter into the boot. He complied. They then drove into a petrol station and fueled. Then they proceeded on rough road and then the vehicle switched off. It was started and then again the engine switched off the second time and the third time. Then he could feel that they were on smooth road, and then the vehicle drove fast, then slowed down and entered the right side before stopping. The man came out of the vehicle, then he heard screams of ladies, and then the vehicle reversed and entered the main road again and drove off. He remained in the boot. Then after about 20 to 25 minutes, he had the vehicle stop on the road. Then people came out and he had them speak. He stated that he listened carefully and he understood they were policemen. He then started banging the boot and then they came and opened the boot for him. He came out and saw they were next to a flat and the police were questioning a man and a lady. He stated that there was bright light from the security light. The man was saying that he was coming to open the gate. Then he was at Kabete police station because somebody had already reported that him, that is PW1, and his vehicle were missing. He went to Kabete police station and found the police officers handling the matter, who also took his statement. He was asked to leave the vehicle there. The police took him home. He further stated that he had driven his vehicle from the flats to Kikuyu police station, then again to Kabete police station where he left it. He further stated that he checked the vehicle and saw all his articles scattered in the vehicle. His wife's bag was in the vehicle, but the phone, make Nokia, was missing. The Meko gas and the shopping were also missing. Those people had also earlier on taken his phone, make Huawei, and the following day he stated he went to Kabete police station and picked his vehicle. On 15th of February 2015 at about 5:40 p.m. he stated he was at Central Police Station where he had been asked to go for an identification parade of some gentlemen. At Central Police Station, he found people lined up for him to identify. He stated that he did not count them, but they were around 10. He was asked if he could identify any of the men in the parade, and he told the officer to let him hear their voices, and he asked them to shout, "Fungua mlango, ruka kiti ya nyuma." They shouted the words, and he was not able to identify any. He stated that he insisted on voice identification because that was the only way he could identify the man with. The incident had been at night and it was dark, so he was not able to identify any of their faces. He was then summoned to Kamukunji police station, where he was taken to another parade again of more than 10 men. He did not see any of the participants before going to the parade. He stated that he demanded again the parade members to shout, "Fungua mlango, ruka kiti ya nyuma," and was able to identify a voice was able to connect with the incident. He pointed and picked out the man with the voice, and he stated that he clearly remembered the voice, the force of the voice. Referring to the identification parade form, he stated that it is dated 15 February 2015, at Kamkunji police station, and that his name appears as witness number 1, and at paragraph B, the name of the suspect is Raphael Kimani Gashi. That at page 4, paragraph E shows the results that he had identified him by touching, and that he was not sure if the person he identified is in court, and that he identified him through the voice. He also identified a copy of logbook serial number B0893128196A. Neither his phone nor his wife's phone was recovered, he stated. PW2, Jane Njoki Gatia, testified that she lives in a place called Kangemi, and at the material time worked for Jaguar CBD campus as a student counselor. On 6th of February 2015, at around 8:30 p.m., she was from Houston at Mount Kenya University and went to Nakumatt Lifestyle Supermarket and did shopping for household goods. She then proceeded to the parking where her husband, namely Mr. Ngatia, was waiting. Her husband had family vehicle KBF 796A, which was registered in her name, Nissan Sunny, beige in color. They then proceeded home via Waiyaki Way. At Kangemi Shell station near Wangige, she stated they stopped for her to buy fruits. She left her husband in the vehicle and also left her bag and Nokia phone in the vehicle. Her phone number was 0721 101 564. She went to the kiosk and bought fruits. She then proceeded to where she had left the car not more than 15 minutes earlier, and she stated that she did not find the car. She did not find her husband or the car. People were walking past, so she decided to walk home because it was close by. She dashed home and asked if her husband had been home, and the answer was in the negative. She asked her daughter, Naomi Gatia, to call her father's phone. It did not go through. She then called a neighbor, friend called Beatrice, to accompany her to Kabete police station because she thought she had to report. A neighbor by the name Bruce drove at Kabete police station where she reported the matter. The police advised her to go back and wait for any report, and she complied. Then at about 2 a.m., the police called her daughter, Penina's phone, and told her that her husband had been found safe with a car and that they would bring him home. The police brought the husband home at 2:30 a.m. and told her that she would go for a car the following day. She stated that the police came in with a paper bag which had a handbag, and she confirmed everything was in the bag except her phone. And she stated that the police officer told her that he found everything scattered in the car and placed them in the bag. The following day, her husband went and brought the car home. At the shopping, she had done all the shopping she had done, and an empty Meko cylinder had been found missing from the car. The phone was also stolen. She identified a copy of the logbook of the motor vehicle registration number KBF 796A and stated that the vehicle was registered in her name. PW3 Gladys Waidera testified that at the material time, she was a financial advisor with British American Insurance Westlands branch. On 6th of February 2015, at about 6:15 p.m., she left the office and headed to Dagoretti Corner to a garage in the company of her sister by the name Irene Mudoni to see a mechanic to repair her car registration number KBE 464L Toyota Spatio beige in color. Because she was late, her car could not be repaired, so she just discussed business with the mechanic, briefing karaoke, and then she left the garage between 10 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. and headed home towards Wangige at a place called Greenbelt. Before reaching Wangige, a mechanic called to ask if she had reached home, and she called the caretaker, namely Geogre, to open the gate for her, but he did not pick the call. They headed straight to the gate, and she called Geogre again. The gate had very bright fluorescent lights, she stated. She called Geogre again. While at the gate, she saw a vehicle appear from behind, and the vehicle parked behind them. It was a saloon car. Then suddenly she turned and saw all the 4 doors open, and 4 men came towards her vehicle. One had a big gun, and the others had pistols. It was the co-driver who had the big gun, a G3 rifle. The 4 men ordered them to open the door. They screamed. Okay. Huwa inafanyika once in a while. Eh? So when that happens, what you do if you have a mobile phone, weka torch alafu iangalie juu. Mulika juu. You take time for the outline, one to come back. Because it affects the server. So we'll continue. Where was that? Stima ilipotea mkaogopa sana. Sorry, we pause a bit so that he brings it back. Who was online?
No, maybe the media team.
Can I just continue?
Yes.
I'll go back a bit so that you will pick up. The gate had very bright fluorescent lights, she stated. She called Geogre again while at the gate. She saw a vehicle appear behind them, and the vehicle parked behind them. It was a saloon car. Then suddenly she turned and saw all the 4 doors open, and 4 men came towards her vehicle. One had a big gun and others had pistols. It was the co-driver who had the big gun, a G3 rifle, that is XP3. The 4 men ordered them to open the door. They screamed loud and drove on, and she hit the gate. The lights in the houses were on. She opened the door. The man who was at her door of the car came into the car. At that time, she stated, the lights inside the vehicle at the roof at the front were on, and she stated that there were bright lights, and that when she came out, she was forced to go to the back seat as her phone, make Samsung Galaxy S3, fell down in the vehicle. Her sister was also forced to the back seat. The 4 men entered her vehicle, Her sister was also forced to the back seat, and she stated that she was robbed of her phone and laptop computer and Kenya shillings 1,000, which was in the wallet, and ATM card. After she gave them everything they asked for, she was forced to jump into the boot of the car. She stated that the four were speaking to her in Kiswahili, and they said, "Rukeni nyuma." She stated that they jumped into the boot, and they were covered with marks and the papers that were in the boot. While at the back seat, she stated her sister and herself had also been masked, and on being forced into the boot, they were unmasked. Because her phone had fallen down, those people really harassed her, thinking that she had kept it, and they drove off but stopped on the way to look for it, searched for it until they found it. She stated that those people kept on threatening them, engaging in conversation, whether to finish them off to avoid being occasioned trouble, and whether to take them to Karura and finish them off. She further stated that when the vehicle stopped and those people came out of the car to search for the phone, she was able to see them as those people threatened them for about 3 minutes until they found the phone. She stated that the driver was less than 1 meter from her, the other sat next to her in the vehicle, and another sat at the passenger seat, and the fourth one next to her sister. After those people got the phone, they got into the car and drove off at high speed, and she stated that as those people threw them into the car's boot, they asked for Kenya shillings 100,000, saying that they do not harm ladies, and that she told them that she does not have that kind of money, nor did she have anyone with that kind of money. Those people drove and stopped at a very noisy place, which she thought was a pub, and she had them ask each other how many people were in that car. They did several stops as they mentioned K1 and Sankara, though they did not kajak anyone there. After a lot of driving and stopping, she felt they were moving very fast on the highway. Then the vehicle stopped. One of those people exited from the car, from the co-driver's door. Then she heard about 5 gunshots, and she thought they were shooting people. She was covered, and she could not see who was shooting. Then she heard a commotion, and their car was hit. Then a man came back into their car, and she heard them argue. Those people kept on saying, "Chairman," or "Bro." And the one who was the chairman was complaining. Then she had the vehicle drive back the highway where it drove at a very high speed. They stopped at 2 noisy places again, and then the vehicle drove very fast as one of them made a phone call asking someone where he was. And the caller confirmed that the man was at Daisy. Along the way, she stated, one of the men exited, then further on the vehicle stopped, and one came and opened the boot for her and her sister. They pointed to them a direction to a homestead and ordered them to walk without looking back. She stated that they went to that homestead as the vehicle drove off. They sat in the cold in that homestead for 2 to 3 hours when the owner of the homestead woke up and found them outside. And they narrated to them what happened and gave them breakfast and bus fare to police station. She stated that she had no idea what the place was. The lady in the house directed them to Tigoni police station, where they gave their statement. She further stated that at the police station, the police informed them that the vehicle had already been found and was at Kerwa AP camp. They were directed to Kikuyu police station, where the police escorted them to Kerwa AP camp, where they found the vehicle. They took the vehicle to Kikuyu police station, where they again gave their statements. The car was handed over to them, she stated, and that she saw that the left hand side of bumper and left wing and grille on headlights were damaged. The left headlights were not there. She had left her handbag cards and documents in the vehicle. She got those items except her phone and laptop. She took her vehicle to her garage and she referred to the sale agreement in respect of the said motor vehicle in the course of her testimony. On 15th of February 2015, at about 5 p.m., sorry, that gentleman standing near the door. Wewe uko sawa?
Yes.
Tafuta mahali ukae.
Thank you.
Thank you. On 15th of February 2025, at about 5 p.m., she was at Central Police Station where she had been called to go and identify the robbers, and she was called to a parade of about 8 men, and she was not able to identify any man. Then she was called to Kamukunji Police Station and was introduced to a parade of 8 men and asked to identify the robbers who had robbed him, and she was able to identify one man. She stated that at Kamukunji Police Station she participated in 3 parades, and referring to parade form, that is Exhibit 1, and paragraph C, she stated that her name is listed as witness number 2 for suspect Rafael Kimani Gaki, and that she asked the parade members to speak so that she could identify their voices. And she wanted them to say, "Unapiga honi," and she was able to identify the driver's voice, and she was only told later that he was Rafael Kimani. She stated that she identified him by his voice and tapped him on his shoulders, and that he is the second accused person hearing. That apart from his voice, she also identified him by his size and stature, and that she observed him well when she was out of the car and he moved into the car. She also participated in another parade for a suspect called Mustafa Kimani Anyoni, and her name is listed in parade form, that is as the second witness, and the parade had about 8 men, and she was able to identify the suspect also by his voice and stature, and he had uttered the words "Enda nyuma," which she asked them to speak out, and she also identified him by his face. She stated that he had been seated in the vehicle right next to her on the right hand side, and that he is the third accused person hearing. PW3 further stated that she also did a third parade for Stephen and Steve Alipapo, and that the form shows her name as witness number 2, that the parade had about 8 members, and she was able to identify the suspect by his voice, face, and face, and that he had uttered the words "Rudi nyuma," which she asked members of the parade to utter, and that he had been seated in the vehicle behind the co-driver's seat, and that is the 4th accused person hearing, and that she was able to identify the suspect by his voice, stature, and face, and that he had uttered the words "Rudi nyuma," which she asked members of the parade to utter, and he had sat in the vehicle behind the co-driver's seat. On cross-examination by the second accused, she stated that when she was abandoned, she went to Tigoni police station and the police did not ask her to give description of the man who was driving the vehicle, and that she did not tell the police that she was able to identify the second accused after she was told that her vehicle had been recovered, that she clearly saw the second accused person's face well, and she also identified the second accused by his voice because the voice was unique and she could not have mistaken it. And she further stated on cross-examination by the third accused that when she wrote her statement at Tigoni police station, she only wrote how she was carjacked and robbed of her car, that the third accused was the one who was seated next to her as he held her hand and neck, and she could not fail to identify him, and that at Tigoni police station the police only asked her about the loss of her phone, laptop and motor vehicle. On cross-examination by the 4th accused person, she stated that her statement says it was on 7th February 2025, and that she signed the statement on 6th and that it was a typing error as it was on Friday 6th. Then when she went to Tigori police station to report the robbery, she was asked to give a description of the assailant. She further stated that one Mr. Chege was a caretaker and was threatened by one of the assailants, and that she could not tell exactly how Mr. Chege witnessed the incident as she was in the vehicle being harassed. The whole episode was about 5 hours from the beginning to the end, she stated. She identified motor vehicle registration number KBE 464L in the course of her testimony and produced the same as prosecution exhibit 7, after which the court made an order for its release to PW3. PW4, Irene Mudoni Mambui, testified that at the material time she was working with Britam as a financial consultant on 6th February 2015. She was at Britam offices where she worked until 6 p.m. and then met her sister by the name Gladys Waidera in Westlands at 6 p.m. And then they took her sister's motor vehicle registration number KBE 464L to garage. Her sister drove the vehicle to the garage and at Dagoretti corner called GTEC Photo Garage, where they met one Griffin Karaoke, who was the owner of the garage, at about 7 p.m. who, after advising them that it was late, they agreed that he works on the vehicle the following day. So they left the garage at around 10 p.m. and headed home at Greenbelt at a place called Wangigi. Along the way, Griffin called to know how they were doing, and she spoke to him and told him that they were at almost home. And she then called caretaker of their residence, namely Titus, and before they could arrive at the gate, so that he could open the gate for them. When they arrived at the gate, the caretaker had not opened the gate, so they had to wait at the gate. There were bright fluorescent lights at the gate on either side facing the road. As they waited at the gate, she stated she saw a white car approach from behind them. The vehicle came and parked behind them, and 4 men came out of the car and approached them. One had a long firearm. The one who had the long firearm went to the passenger's side where she sat and pointed at her with the firearm. She was shaken when she saw the firearm, but she closed the door. The man with the firearm then went to the door and ordered her to go to the back seat. In Kiswahili language, Ruka Nyuma Madam, and she was able to see his face and eyes as it was well lit. There was bright light. She stated that the person who had the gun is the first accused person here. After she jumped to the back seat, she stated there was another man sitting at the back seat on the left side, that when the doors were open, there were top lights on the roof of the car, the vehicle top lights, that is overhead lights of the car. She was able to see well the one she found on the seat, and that is the 4th accused person here. She stated that one of the 4 men, who is the 2nd accused person, took over the car. On the back seat, she stated she sat with her sister, so she did not come into contact with the 4th accused, who sat behind the driver. And that in the back seat, she sat with her sister and 2 men who sat with them. The men demanded everything they had. She gave out her phone, made Huawei, and Kenya shillings 600, which was in her bag. She gave her phone to the man who was next to her, who is the 4th accused person. She stated that those men asked for their bags, which they searched and took the money. Those people covered that is victims' heads with boots and then started driving. The car was being driven very fast, she stated, and those people kept on asking them if they had any money in their bank accounts, and they said that they did not have any. And when they said they had no money, the men ordered them to jump inside the boot, and while in the boot, those men covered them with boot mat and threw their bags, that is the victims' bags, at them. and covered their faces and bodies, she stated. She then felt the vehicle being driven on rough roads, and that went on for a long time, and she could hear them stopping at noisy places, and she also heard them talking about places like ABC Place, Sankara, K1, which she knew are hotels and clubs. She stated that those people could slow down, then drive on again as to suggest they were looking for someone else to attack. And at one point, she had them mentioning a VW car that they were chasing and how it avoided them. It reached a point where the vehicle was driven to a petrol station and fueled for Kenya shillings 500. Then the vehicle went on, driven on smooth road, and then the vehicle stopped. Then the driver jumped out, and after a few seconds, he heard gunshots, and then she heard the car being hit from the front on high impact, and then she heard the driver and others jump into the car again. Previously, she stated she had not heard when the others had gotten out, so she only heard them when they came back. When they came back in, as one was ordering the others, Ruka Nyuma. And then she had them quarreling each other, and then she had the one behind, the co-driver said, "Atawe chairman, mlango yako imekuwa imejam jana." And then the issue was settled. Still, they were inside the boot, and the vehicle was driven for a long time. And then she had one make a call and mention a place called Zambezi. She had a place called Zambezi along Nairobi-Nakuru highway. And after some more driving, the car stopped. And one of the four men alighted, then the car drove off again and again. After some time, stopped. And the boot was opened, and her sister and herself were ordered out of the boot. The car had stopped on Tarmac Road, on the highway. There were bushes, so the one who ordered them to alight ordered them to follow a footpath that led to a home. So they ran into a compound where there were houses and the lights were off. There were no movements at the home. When they were on the footpath, she had those people bang the boot and then drove off. She remained in the compound, seated behind one of the houses to wait for someone to wake up. And after a long wait, they saw a girl knock on a door. And when they called the girl, she moved back as she was scared and went back and informed her mother that there were strangers in the home. The mother then came out and called her two sons who came out. She stated that they explained to the sons what had happened to them, and then the sons directed them to where they could find police officers. Then on a second thought, those people invited them into the house and gave them tea and bread and jiko to warm themselves. She stated that they also requested for fare and phone to call relatives, and the lady, she stated, directed them to Tigoni police station and gave them fare of Kenya shillings 200 to Tigoni police station. On 15th of February 2015, which was a Sunday at about 5:43, let me read again. On 15th February 2015, which was on a Sunday, at about 4:53 p.m., she was at Central Police Station where she was requested to go for identification parades of suspects. She identified the parade form where she was listed as witness number 3, that is exhibit 8, and the suspect was Eric Muyera Isabwa. The parade had 8 members, and she was able to identify the suspect in the parade. That when she saw him, she was able to identify him by his physical appearance, and she touched him on his left shoulder. And Eric, whom she identified, is the first accused person behind it, she stated. On the same day of 15th February 2015, she stated they proceeded to Kamukunji police station, where she attended another identification parade where the suspect was Rafael Kimani Gashi. The parade had 8 members, and she was able to identify Rafael Kimani Gashi by touching him. and that is the second accused person before the court, and she referred to the identification parade form in the course of her testimony. She further stated that she also attended another identification parade on the same day at Kamukunji police station at about 5:40 p.m. That the suspect was Stephen Asitiva Lipapo. The parade had 8 members, and she was able to identify the suspect by touching him. And she referred to the parade form in the course of her testimony. On cross-examination, she stated, on cross-examination by the first accused person, she stated that they reported the incident the following day because it took long from the time they were attacked to the time they were released, that she was not asked by the police if she was able to identify the robbers, that she was able to identify them, that the OB extract was a carjacking report by Irene Mudoni and Gladys Waithera, and that it confirms that her sister and herself reported to Tigoni police station that what was lost is not in the abstract of the full content which was reported, and that she saw well those who robbed them, and she gave their description as the one with the gun was in the green jacket with the physique of the first accused, and that it was the police who ought to have recorded that, and that she had not met the man she met at Central Police Station before the date of the incident, and that she identified first accused with big eyes, appearance and physique, and that it is not noted in the police file. On cross-examination by the second accused, she stated that at paragraph 2 of her statement, she wrote she lost her Huawei phone, money and laptop, that OB extract does not state what she lost, that all that she lost is in her statement, that the report states that they were being referred to another officer for full report, which they did. That at the gate there was bright light. She was able to identify the second accused, that she answered the questions that she was asked by the police officer, and that in the statement the description of the second accused was not stated. On cross-examination by the fourth accused person, she stated that she was robbed and identified the thieves, that even in the vehicle there was light. The incident was on the night of 6th and spilled over to 7th as it was past midnight, and that her statement says it was 7th February 2015, that the police did not ask her if she could identify him, that they were masked, that they had already been robbed, and that she saw the fourth accused well as they approached, and even inside the vehicle before being robbed, that she was robbed while the robbers were already seated and having forced her to the back, that the robbers approached them as one of the robbers held a gun, and that she identified the fourth accused by appearance and hands that harassed her the whole night, and that the parade form shows she identified the fourth accused by touching. PW5, Griffin Kariuki and Mario testified that at the material time, he worked at the Kabete corner at a garage called Kabete Auto Garage on 6th of February 2025 at about 7 p.m. He was at his place of work when Irene Mudoni called him and told him that she wanted to bring her vehicle for repairs. Irene brought the vehicle registration number KDE 464L, make spatio beige in color, at about 7 p.m., accompanied by her sister by the name Gladys Waithera. After he told them that he could not work on the vehicle, they stopped, and then the front bumper, headlights and fog lights were broken. The rear bumper had also been knocked, and they told him that They had been attacked by thieves and robbed of the vehicle, and they had reported to police. He stated that Gladys asked him to prepare the vehicle. He prepared the vehicle until 10th February 2025 when the flying squad summoned him, so he went to the offices, and then they went with him to the garage and took the vehicle. PW6 Alice Wangui Waweli testified that on 6th of February 2015, which was on a Saturday, she had gone to her farm and then went back to her house along Wanjige Kikuyu Road and then went to sleep. Some minutes past midnight, she was asked by her neighbor, Patricia, who stays on the first floor, to check through the window. And when she checked through the window, she saw a vehicle exiting from their plot and joining the main road towards Kikuyu side. She only saw the rear light and not the registration number and did not understand why the neighbor wanted her to check on the vehicle. She then called her and she indicated to her that she had seen a vehicle belonging to their neighbor appear at the gate only to be followed by another vehicle from the back, and that men had come from the rear car and entered the lady's vehicle and drove off, and that the men had left their vehicle there. That the neighbor also told her that she suspected that the ladies who were their neighbors had been hijacked from the way the men entered their vehicle. She stated that she called an officer by the name Kosgei of Kikuyu Police Station using the mobile number he had given them at a baraza and told him what had happened and that the other vehicle was still at the gate. In less than 10 minutes, she stated, Officer Kosgei and other officers came and Kosgei called her out. The caretaker and herself pushed the gate open and she found Kosgei having come with another officer. Then they had a man knock from inside the boot of the abandoned vehicle and Kosgei opened for him. The man came out and stood by. She stated that she saw the vehicle very well and identified photographs of the same KBF 796A being the vehicle that had been abandoned and out of whose boot someone came out. The DCIO Kikuyu came and left with the men, and she had the man saying that he had been carjacked at Kangemi by 4 men, one of whom had a gun. She stated that she did not see well the vehicle which had driven off, that their neighbor later told them that it was their vehicle. The following morning at about 7 a.m. she sent a message to Inoro FM that the 2 ladies had been carjacked at midnight in their vehicle, and she had the same being announced on radio. PW7, number 2-10234, SP William Kosgei testified that at the material time he was in charge of Kikuyu sub-county, which covered Kino, Mulige, Karoi and Kikuyu divisions. His duties include ensuring security and attending public meetings. He gave his telephone number, his telephone contacts severally while at Kikuyu, and he further stated that on 6th of February 2015, at about midnight, a lady called Alice called him and told him that she had seen at their gate a white motor vehicle driven off, while another one was left at the gate with parking lights on. He then called and relayed the information to DCI, and then he proceeded to the scene together with the driver. He stated that he found a vehicle, KBF 796A Nissan Sunny, parked. He identified photographs of the said motor vehicle, and he stated he saw it well because the place was well lit. When he reached, he saw that the key was in the ignition. Then someone knocked at the boot, and they informed his driver that someone was knocking. At that time, he stated Alice had not come down. He opened the boot, the man came out, and then the DCIO arrived. Alice, who had been called to the scene, also came down. The vehicle stated was facing the gate, and the man from the boot introduced himself as Michael Ngatia and said that he had been carjacked at Kangemi while his wife was buying vegetables, and the wife did not know who he was, where he was, sorry. He stated that he handed over to DCI to investigate the case further. And the man told him that he had been carjacked by men with big guns and that he could not remember how many people had carjacked him, but he saw a big gun, which he could not say whether it was an AK-47 or a Geogre rifle. He handed over to the matter to DCIO, he stated. PW8, Veronica Mumbo Kinyanjui testified that she stays in Limuru and that on 7th February 2015 at about 5 a.m. she was in her house when she sent her daughter, who was then in class 5, to go and call her brother. On the way to her brother, she had a lady calling her, so she went back to the house and told her that there was a lady outside next to the kitchen. She stated that she checked through the window but could not see anything. She decided to go out to see. She headed to where her son was and called him out so that she could see the lady who had been calling out her daughter. She stated that she saw there were two ladies. The ladies told her that they had been carjacked and abandoned at the gate with an order that they ran into the compound. And she told them that there was a police roadblock on the road and they could seek assistance there. When they left, she stated her children told her that she had not done a good thing as it was still dark and they could not know the way. So she followed them and called them back and gave them tea. The ladies had looked scared and were shaking out of cold. So after they finished taking tea, it was daylight. So she gave them a phone to call their relatives and then gave them Kenya shillings 200 for fare and directed them to go to Tigoni police station and escorted them to the bus stage where they could take matatu, that is public service vehicle, to Tigoni. On the night of 7 February 2015 at around 2:40 a.m., he was at his place of work. There were lights, bright street lights at the roundabout. Honorable Muchai came in his vehicle from the side of Nairobi University as he headed towards town. The vehicle had 4 people inside, he stated. The vehicle stopped on the left side as one faces down direction. Honorable Muchai called him the moment the vehicle stopped, and when he went to him, he saw he was the one because he knew him and he had sold to him newspapers for 7 to 8 years. Honorable Muchai was seated on the left with someone, and on the front there was the driver and a passenger. Honorable Muchai called him out by his name the way he used to do and asked him if he had all the 4 newspapers: Nation, Standard, Star, and Nairobian, as he used to buy all the 4 newspapers. As he was giving him the last newspaper, which was Nairobian, and before he could be paid, a white motor vehicle came from his back and stopped in front of Muchai's vehicle. One man came out of the car, from the driver's car, carrying a gun. The man had put on a mask on his face, and he could only see the man's eyes and mouth, and could not see his face. He stated that the gun resembled the one that was before the court, that is Exhibit 3. The man, he stated, immediately started firing his gun. First shot at Honorable Muchai's driver. He stated that he had about 8 gunshots. All the newspapers he had on his hand fell down. He fell down and his teeth came off, and he started running, leaving the newspapers. Upon getting home, he stated he decided to go to hospital. While on his way to hospital at around 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., he got information that Geogre Muchai, the MP for Kabete, had been killed at Uhuru Highway roundabout, and he trembled without telling anyone. He went to the scene after 2 weeks after he felt well. He stated that the white vehicle had black windows, so he was unable to see how many people were inside it. He stated that he later learned that the MP and his 3 bodyguards had been shot dead. He later on went and wrote a statement to the police and stated that he did not identify the attackers. PW10 Alice Bangui Gigi testified that she does business and also lets out houses, and that she has rental houses in Rironi in Limuru called Arijuana Enterprises, which she had for more than 10 years. In June 2014, a tenant called Karanja went to her and sought to rent her house. So he let the house to him. Went to her and rented the house. He's the second accused person hearing that he rented room number 18 in that flat, and the monthly rent was Kenya shillings 7,000 that he was paying rent. He identified a bundle of 8 rent payment receipts, that is Exhibit 10A, for dates from 11th June 2014 to 2nd of February 2015, and a bundle of 8 water payment receipts for the same room, number 18, that is Exhibit 10B. On 13th of February 2015, she stated she went to see her father at St. Mary's in Gilgil when her sister named Lihana called and told her that police wanted to break into the house. She gave a go-ahead for the police to just break into the house, and then her sister called her again and told her that before the police could break the door, Karanja had been inside the house, opened for them and was arrested. Later on, the police went to her shop in Rironi and asked her to record a statement on how she leased the house to Karanja. She stated that she knew Karanja's full names when his mother went to her, and she had earlier on asked him for his identity card, and that in the receipts she was just writing the name Karanja, that his real names are Rafael Kimani Gashi, that she was not present when he was arrested, and she does not know if the police recovered anything from him. PW11 Grace Njoki testified that she lives at a place called 87 in Udhiru, and that in November 2014, a lady went asking for a house at her father's plot. Her father's name was Simon Geogre Muchai, and the lady who went asking for the house is the 6th accused person here. The lady, she stated, did not identify herself to her other than saying that she was Mama Kimberly. She gave to her the house, and the following morning, the lady gave to her the agreed rent of Kenya shillings 3,000, which she handed over to her father. She was also living in the same plot, but was not the lady's neighbor. The lady was living in the house with her 3 children and was paying rent with difficulties though. I want everyone seated, even if you're a journalist. Madam, please find a place. On 13th of February 2015, at about 2 p.m., she was at her sister's place at 87 View, and then she came back to the plot in the evening. She had residents in the plot saying that Mama Kimberly had been arrested by police officers and found that there were only children in the house, and the following day the children's grandmother went to stay with the children, and that Mama Kimberly had stayed in that house for 4 months. PW12, Simon Jogu Ngoma, testified that he is a retired mason, lives in Kiuru in Dagoretti, in Oziru, and that he owns residential houses which he rents out. In November 2014, he stated the sixth accused person rented his house. It was his daughter-in-law, known as Mama Shiro, who allowed her into the house, and she was paying rent of Kenya shillings 3,000, which she used to pay to Mama Shiro. On 13th of February 2015, she was from Kware at a place called Shauriyako, Mothika, heading home with stones in a motor vehicle. On reaching home, before the stones could be dropped, people who had parked vehicles beside the road next to his home came out of the vehicles. He saw police officers heading to his home, and when he went close to receive them, they ordered him to move away, so he ran away and stood at a distance to watch. And when he decided to come back, he had people struggling at the house of the sixth accused person. He stood aside out of fear. Then he saw police officers leave and enter their vehicle. After they left, he stated he went and checked the house of the sixth accused and found only 3 children. About 4 days later, 2 police officers went to his house and asked him to write his statement. PW13, Stephen Wang Nokia, testified that he stays at Kasarani, operates an entity called Grand Care Agencies. On 16th of May 2011, one Geoffrey Karanja called him and told him to meet him at Ruiru toll station. And when he went there, they talked, and Karanja gave him work of being a caretaker of his houses. So he was managing and letting out Karanja's property, 20 single rooms and 12 double rooms. The houses were about 20 meters from the road next to toll station, and there was a tenancy agreement which each tenant could break through and sign before being let into the house. He referred to the tenancy agreement in the course of his testimony, and he stated that one Stephen Asitiva went and was shown a house and liked the house, and so he gave him a tenancy agreement which he read and signed, and that the latter gave him names of Stephen Asitiva, ID 22912121, PO Box 39 Bunyore, telephone 0727585807. Stephen paid rent of Kenya shillings 2,300 and deposit of the same amount, and was issued with deposit receipt number 23457 and receipt number 23458 for rent, and he referred to receipts for August, September and October. The receipts were exhibits 11A and B. He stated that Asitiva remained in the house and did not give notice that he was relocating, and he used to send money to Geoffrey Mwaura, and that he never used to see him in the house, but he never bothered, as he thought it was because of his work. Then on 12th of February 2015, Geoffrey Mwaura called him during the day and told him that the police had come and arrested the tenant at room 15. Then on 30th of March 2015, he received a call from police station where he recorded his statement before Corporal Moses. He further stated that he was not able to identify Stephen Asitiva in court, as he saw him once for about 5 minutes, and he was in a cave, and many times Asitiva used to send money to Geoffrey directly, and that he did not know any of the accused persons. PW14, Oscar Nyenje Shisila testified that at the material time he lived at a place called Kawangwai. On 8th February 2015, at about 10 a.m., on a Sunday. He left home in Kawangware and went to Kangemi and met Stephen Kuria, who was his friend with whom he used to stay in one plot. He asked Kuria to lend him Kenya shillings 200 and told him to give him some security to hold like a phone. And also told him he would have to refund the Kenya shillings 200 with interest. So he gave out his phone, make Alcatel, which had a SIM card for a U line. It had IMEI number 3577699039196976. That is SB12. And new SIM card at serial number 89254 05000126729845 SB12 day. After handing over his phone, Kuria proceeded home. On the same day, he stated it was a Sunday, his cousin by the name Josephat Shoshe went to his house. And he, that is PW14, asked him for Kenya shillings 300, which he gave to him. Then at about 6:30 p.m., he crossed to Kangemi and gave to Stephen Kuria Kenya shillings 250, and Kuria gave back to him his mobile phone. He stated that the phone was off and that he had given it to Kuria when it was on, and the phone still had the U SIM card. After getting his phone back, he went back to his house. On 11th of February 2015, on a Wednesday, he arrived home at about 5:30 p.m. with his wife, Scholastica, and after he was served tea, two men suddenly entered the house and introduced themselves as agents who were looking for workmen and asked him what he could do, and he said he could do any job. His cousin said driver's job, while his wife said housemaid's job. Those people then asked if he had a phone, and he responded in the affirmative. Those people asked for his number, and he gave to them his number. And those people then called that number, and it rang from inside the compound, the carport. Those people also asked his phone for a phone number, which she gave to them, and the people called the number and asked for it. His wife gave to those people an Alcatel phone. His cousin also gave to them his Nokia phone. And then those people showed to him the identity cards and told him that they were CID officers. And also informed him that on 8th of February 2015 at about 11 a.m. his line had been used in a Huawei phone, and he told those people that he was not aware and that he had given his phone to Stephen Kuria. He further stated that since his cousin knew Kuria, they gave to Kuria Kenya shillings 200 to go and confirm if Stephen Kuria was in his house and buy airtime credit and call them back to confirm. He remained behind with Kim, he stated, and then his cousin called and said that Kuria was not in, so he was taken towards Kuria's house, and along the way, they met Kuria, who had come from his plot, and then he pointed Kuria to the police, and the police then arrested Kuria. Both of them, he stated, were taken to Kilimani police station where he recorded his statement at around 8 p.m. And the police told him that they were looking for a phone where his line had been used. He was later taken to Pangani police station where he stayed for 4 days, and then he was taken to Central Police Station where he stayed for 2 days, and then he was released. He stated that he had personally not used his SIM card in any other phone. And he produced the Alcatel phone and the SIM card in the course of his testimony, that is exhibit 12 and 12A, and stated that the SIM card did not have a PIN. PW15, Stephen Kuria Maina, testified that he is a volunteer teacher staying at Kangemi at the material time on 8 February 2015. He stated he was at a field in Kangemi when Oscar that is changeover from generator to mainline. If mainline goes off again, the same thing will happen, so just be prepared. PW15, Stephen Kuria Maina, testified that he is a volunteer teacher staying at Kangemi at the material time. He was at a field in Kangemi when Oscar Ganje, his friend, went to him and asked him for Kenya shillings 200. He needed to pass by his grandmother nearby. He opened the door and found a phone being charged. It was a Huawei phone. It was a big phone, and out of curiosity, he held the phone and saw that it did not have a SIM card. He stated that since he did not have his Huawei phone, he removed the SIM card from Oscar's phone and placed in it the phone he had found charging. And he stated that after the phone turned on, even before he could use it, Simon entered and told him to leave the phone alone to charge, and that the phone was not his, and the owner could bring problems if it was used. He stated that the SIM card remained in the phone for about 15 minutes. Simon then told him that he did not have anything for lunch, and so he left and proceeded home. He further stated that when he returned, the U line in Oscar's phone, it remained off, and that he remained with the phone till Oscar came and gave him Kenya shillings 250 at about 3 p.m. and then he gave the phone back to Oscar. At that time, the phone was off. Then on 11th of February 2015, at about 1 p.m. while he was at home, he saw 3 police vehicles come. The vehicles had private number plates. Then men came out and he saw them take away Simon. Then later the same day at about 7 p.m., 2 police officers came with Oscar and arrested him. He was taken to Kilimani police station and transferred to Pangani police station, then taken to Central police station where he was released. He came to know the reason for his arrest 2 days after he had been arrested, that it was because of the phone he had found in Simon's house, and that he later read in the newspapers that the phone had been connected to the death of the late Mr. Muchai. He identified his Huawei Y100, that is exhibit 13 in the course of his testimony, and stated that its IMEI number is 86288601002644, and also identifies Safaricom SIM card in the phone 0702 812 and produced. At around 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. he was at Kampuni police station, where he conducted 2 identification parades after being requested by the investigating officer, namely Chief Inspector Kennedy Geogre Muchai. He stated that there were 2 suspects to be identified, namely Rafael Kimani Oshio and Stephen Astiva Lipapo. Both suspects were in the cells at Kamukunji police station, and he stated that there were 3 witnesses, namely Michael Latia Akitu. Latia the metal and went home with it because he felt suspicious. Because the metal, he felt suspicious about the metal, so he called a police officer friend of his, met the officer, showed him the metal, and the officer informed him that that metal was part of a gun, and asked him how he got it in the first place. Took him to the police station where he recorded a statement at Kilimani police station on how he got the metal. The officers told him to leave it with them to investigate how it got to the car he drove. So he switched off his phone because he knew Mustafa would call him to ask for it, yet he did not have it. He stated that he lost touch with Mustafa and did not meet him again. Of the people he carried, he stated he was a bit tense, so he was not able to identify any of them apart from Musti, whom he stated is the third accused person hearing. And he further stated on cross-examination that he had carried other people prior to Musti, that he had not checked if they left anything in the car, that he could not tell which client left the method in the car, and that he handed over the method to the police. When he handed over the method to the police, it was not recorded in the car history. PW21, Philbert Lewa, testified that he is a fingerprint expert, a fingerprint officer, based at Registrar of Persons. He produced identification reports in respect of the accused person's hearing in the course of his testimony, and he gave details including identity cards to which the reports relate and made reference to the same in the course of his testimony. That is Exhibit 21, A to D, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, and 51. PW2, Sergeant Isaac San, testified that in the year 2015 he was attached to Flying Squad headquarters in Nairobi on operation duties. On 7 February 2015, the gentleman in a beige top. Kuna shida gani? Wewe kuna shida gani? Oh, hiyo ni yako? Yes. Oh, sawa. PW22, Sergeant Isaac San, testified that in the year 2015 he was attached to Flying Squad headquarters in Nairobi on operation duties. On 7th February 2015, he was called by his in charge, namely Saidi Kiprotich, at around 9 a.m. and assigned him and his team a case of robbery with violence. On that day, there was a robbery in which the late Honorable Muchai, who was then the Member of Parliament for Kabete, and his bodyguards were shot dead along Kenyatta Avenue near Nyayo House. They were assigned the duty to look for those suspects who had committed the offense. On 13th February 2015, he got information that some suspects had rented a house at a place called Toll between Ruiru and Kiambu County. On that day, they were in 3 teams. One was led by Chief Inspector of Police, Michel, another by Sergeant Malay, and the third by himself. Upon getting the information, they proceeded to the house and managed to apprehend 4 suspects, namely Stephen Lipapu, alias Chukore, Mustafa Kimani Anyoni, Margaret Njeri, and Jane Mugui. They first arrested Stephen and Mustafa within Toll area. The two led them to the house which they rented, where they found 2 ladies in the house and arrested them. They interrogated all the 4 suspects, namely Stephen Lipapu, led them to one suspect by the name Rafael Kimani Gashi in the Rironi area in Kiambu County. After putting all the 4 of them in their police car, they found Rafael Kimani in the house and arrested him, searched the house, and found Seska pistol, it's bit 22, with a magazine, 22B, containing 15 9mm rounds of ammunition, 22C, a pair of number plates, registration number KBJ 437Z, it's bit 25, A and B, a hacksaw, black and white, made in China with passport number A 197497, his identity card, the number 2195219, identity card number for Rafael Gashi, and identity card number 2195919 for Eric. The serial number for the pistol is stated was erased, and is stated that the cover page at the back of the passport there is a photo of Raphael Kimani, whom he stated is the second accused person here. Further stated that of the two identity cards, number 240400839 belongs to Eric Miera Isabwa, whom he testified is the first accused here, and bear his picture, and the other ID card, number 219 was for Raphael Kimani Gashi and belongs to the person resembling the second accused person here. They made an inventory which the police officers signed. The suspect and the chief also signed. He also identified the AXO, which he stated they recovered in his testimony. He stated that the landlord, namely Simon Gigi Kariuki, also signed. Corporal Vincent Mwao, PC Benson Chebor, and PC Omar, and himself signed. Raphael Kimani signed that put his identity card number stated. He stated that they then moved to Kino area to join the team led by Sergeant Singila at a place called 37, where the team has recovered the G3 rifle and some suspects, and serial number of the G3 rifle had been erased. It was full rifle loaded with a magazine, and Chief Inspector Geogre told him that it was recovered from Eric Muyera. He escorted them and put them in different police stations for the offense of robbery and violence, and he stated that he was not able to identify the two ladies whom they arrested because there were many officers who arrested them. PW23 Administration Police Sergeant Severio Mugo testified that at the material time he was stationed at Nyayo House on guard duties. On 6th February 2015, he reported on duty at Nyayo House at 6 p.m. with his colleague, namely APC John Karanja, APC Francis Nerico, and APC Peter Nduma. And they worked well until 7th February 2015 at 3 a.m. when he heard gunshots around the Uhuru Highway and Kenyatta roundabout. There was about 2 minutes of gunshot exchange, he stated, and he alerted his colleagues that they had to try and find out what was happening. So APC John Karanja and Francis Nerico went ahead as he gave them cover, and APC Peter Nduma remained to guard Nyayo House. He stated that they headed to the roundabout to establish the source of the gunshots, and on arrival they found a motor vehicle registration number KBF 357D Toyota Surf SUV vehicle, which was stationary with its lights on. Another saloon car was behind it and had also been stopped. We did not observe the registration number of the saloon car. The KBF 357D had 4 people inside it, and he stated blood was on every side that he checked. Some watchmen came around and they, the police officers, prevented them from touching the vehicle. When he saw the 4 people inside that vehicle, he took less interest in the saloon vehicle because he was concerned with the KBF vehicle. He then called his senior, namely Chief Inspector Ndirangu, who sent police, who were followed closely by General Service Unit GSU officers. He stated that he told APC Karanja and Nderitu to wait on the others as he went back to his colleagues at Nyayo House. His colleague at Nyayo House, namely Peter Ndirangu, who had remained alone. He observed that the 4 people who were in the KBF vehicle which had blood splashed over windows, were all dead. At that time, he did not know them. Later, he learned that Honorable Geogre Muchai, his driver, and his 2 bodyguards were the ones killed in that gun shootout. He did not see anything else beside the 2 vehicles. He recorded a statement at Central Police Station on 9 February 2015. He did not see the people who were shooting or firing guns, neither did he see any of the accused persons hearing at the scene, he stated. PW 24 and number 244-216 APC Francis Biliku testified that at the material time he was stationed at Nyayo House where he performed guard duties. And on 6th February 2015 at 6 p.m. he was on duty with his colleagues, that is his colleague, PW 23, who was in charge, Peter Ndungu and John Karanja. In the course of work at around 3 a.m. he had gunshots emerging from Uhuru Highway. Then he stated PW 23 sent him to check with Corporal Karanja, and they went towards Uhuru Highway roundabout, where they found a stationary vehicle stopped along Kenyatta Avenue, a big vehicle make 40. On getting close to the vehicle, he saw holes on the right front, rear, right door, and at the back. The holes, he stated, were caused by bullets. In front, there was someone lying on the steering wheel. The right hand was holding the steering wheel, and the left hand holding a handbrake, and the person did not look alive. The rear windows were closed, but when he checked, he saw there were people inside and did not see how many people there were. The driver's window was rolled down a bit. He did not see the person on the passenger's seat beside the driver. Then, he stated, a group of youth started approaching and they prevented them from getting nearby. The motor vehicle, he stated, was registration number KBF 357D. As they tried to prevent the young men, a Mercedes-Benz came and someone alighted from it and checked the front side of the vehicle, then went back and parked the Mercedes vehicle well. Later, he stated, another Mercedes-Benz came behind the vehicle where a lady and a girl came out. The lady shouted, "You have killed my husband." The girl also shouted, "You have killed my dad." The man who had first alighted from the Mercedes-Benz went and comforted the lady. Then a newspaper vendor came and started asking who had killed Mheshimiwa and asked them to call any ambulance. Then 2 policemen came by on foot and asked him and his colleagues what had happened. Then a vehicle with GSU officers in it arrived, and the officer who was in charge of GSU took control of the scene. So, it had before stated, he stepped aside and stayed there at the scene until 6 a.m. on 7th February 2015. Then the 4 bodies were removed from the vehicle, and then him and Corporal Kimani decided to go back to their place of work. He stated on cross-examination that he had 5 gunshots and waited a little before responding to the gunshots as per the police standing orders, and that when they arrived at the scene, they found KBF vehicle, and there was no other vehicle near it until the 2 Mercedes vehicles came. He did not see the person shooting. He did not see the registration numbers of the Mercedes vehicles, and he did not participate in investigating the case. But as the first ones to arrive, they looked at the vehicle from a distance of about 5 meters, and then their colleague joined them after about 10 minutes. The car was in the middle of the road, he stated, and from that distance, the driver's hand, he could see the driver's hand on the steering wheel. and we could not see the one on the passenger seat. People began to come and they started securing the area. But the Mercedes-Benz, which later came, did not breach the security they had placed, and it parked behind the motor vehicle exchange. They proceeded there too, and the officers saw that there was a fault between Kitsuru and the Drill area. We watched over the officers as they fixed the vehicle. At around, they got interested in the registration number of the vehicle, so they followed up with the registrar of the vehicles and found out that the same motor vehicle was registered in Sarah Jeruto's name. Him and Sergeant Geogre looked for Sarah and informed her, and she admitted that the vehicle was hers and that she had sold it to a company known as Sandeep of Formula One Garage, whom they got and indicated to them that he too sold it to a lady by the name Gladys Waidera, that is PW3, and gave to them a contact. He stated that they contacted the lady, and the lady went to their office together with another lady called Irene Mudhoni, and upon interrogating them, Gladys claimed that on 6th February 2015, she was driving a motor vehicle, KBE 464L, with her friend Irene Mudhoni from town headed to Kikuyu Wangige Road, and at her gate she stopped for her gate to be opened, and when 4 men attacked her, one of those men had a big gun, when the other 3 had pistols. Those people had come from a motor vehicle registration number KBF 796A, which they abandoned there and then put the ladies in their car boot, that is the ladies' car boot, and forced them to lie there. And then the 4 got into the car and drove it very fast, and they were robbed of their phones, laptop, shillings 1,600, and ATM cards. That Irene Mudhoni, PW4, was robbed of Huawei phone, and Gladys was robbed of Samsung Galaxy, and that they were taken around on rough road. And at one point the vehicle was stopped and the place was quiet, then they had gunshots, and later they were driven away on a smooth road, and then on rough road, and then they were abandoned in a forest which they realized was called Kamandura between 4 a.m. and 5 p.m. That they went to a homestead but did not knock as it was at night, so they waited for dawn, and then the owner of the home assisted them, and they reported at Tigoni Police Post and Kikuyu Police Station, where their vehicle was recovered at. He stated that the following day they proceeded to Kamandura Forest and later to Kikuyu Police Station and found that the owner of KBF vehicle was Michael Ngatia. They got his contacts, interrogated him as well. Michael Ngatia told them that on 6th February 2015 at around 10 p.m. he was on the highway near Kangemi, where he stopped for a while for his wife to buy items in a nearby shop, and that while in the vehicle 4 people attacked him while armed, took his phone and also of his wife, PW2, put them in the boot, drove him up to a place where they blocked KBE 464L, and then those people left his vehicle KBF and him in the boot until the police came and found him. He stated that they then saw that on that night there were robberies with violence, so they got the telephone numbers that had been stolen of Gladys Waidera, Irene Mudhoni, Jane Ngatia, and Michael Ngatia, and then wrote to Safaricom in order to get those phones IMEI numbers. They got the numbers and asked Safaricom for historical movement of the phones from one person to another, and they got a report that Jane Ngatia's phone was used by subscriber 0700505637 on 7th February 2015 at 10:29 a.m. by one known as Simon Wambugu Bishama, ID number 313809111, who is the seventh accused person in this case. That phone had been stolen the previous night at 10 p.m. from Geogre. The second phone, Irene Mudoni, PW4, was used on 5th February 2015 at 2:50 p.m. by one Oscar Injale Celia of ID number 29031-671 at his PW4. So they looked for those two who had used the phones and wrote to the Director of National Registration Bureau to get details of those two persons, and they got a letter, report concerning their request. Then, stated on 11th February 2015, they got Simon Bishamba. They had been arrested by a team led by one Geogre. They reported a picture of the owner of the identity card 31380911 for Simon Wambugu Bishamba, and the same resembled the seventh accused. He stated that he looked for the other suspect, namely Oscar Injale, and got him. On 11th February 2015 in the evening at Gatina area, his SIM card was used in Irene's phone. On 8th February 2015 at 2:50 p.m. Oscar told them that on that day he went to a Shylock to get a loan, made his phone there to get a loan of $250. So they looked for the Shylock, namely Stephen Courier, and found him and interrogated him about the phone of Injale, and indicated to them that he went to the house of Wambugu, found an idiot's phone and removed the SIM card of Injale, test the idiot's phone with, so that is how Injale's SIM card was captured to be used in the stolen phone, and that Bishamba was annoyed and told him that the phone had issues. PW30 stated that he showed that Simon Bishamba, he saw that Simon Bishamba handled both phones. Let me read again. PW30 said that showed that Simon Bishamba had handled both phones, and the one he put in his SIM, and the one brought by PW15. So he stated they went with the two to where Simon Wambugu had been arrested, and they interrogated the seventh accused person. PW30 further stated that the seventh accused indicated to him that the two phones had been taken to his house by Mustafa and his wife Jane, who also lived in Tangeni, and that he knew them. The seventh accused, he stated, was not doing business of charging phones, but his house had electricity, that the people who brought the phones were the third accused and the fifth accused. The seventh accused was cooperative and gave them the contacts of the third accused by the name Mustafa, and the fifth accused by the name Shiro. Mustafa Kimani, Anyoni's number was 0703665199, while that of Jane was 07. That report, and was called by his in charge, namely Mr. Nyale, Assistant Inspector General of Police, and instructed to help in investigations and to unravel those behind this incident. The investigations were intelligence-led, he stated. So on 13th February 2015, after clustering together and doing investigations, they proceeded to toll petrol station, Thika Highway, Pastorit, in the company of Corporal San, Corporal Sangila, Corporal Michel, and the four of them were leading their respective teams. At around 10:30 a.m., they got to a house where they arrested Mustafa Kimani Nyoni, alias Musto, and Stephen Astiva, while on foot at Toll petrol station. When they introduced themselves as police officers, the two men ran in different directions, one towards Thika and the other towards Sweden. And with the help of members of public, they managed to arrest them and establish the ID numbers of Mustafa and his phone number And after arresting the two, they took their details and conducted search on them, and they got identity cards and phones. The two led them into a house where they found a lady by the name Margaret Bajiru, whom they searched and found her ID card number 30737880 and telephone number 0711038957. They asked her for the phone and she got it to them, and also the telephone number, and in the same house they also arrested Jane Majiru Kamau. They then proceeded to Ruiru police station with all those arrested persons in order to conduct an interview with all of them, and they established their accomplices and their involvement in the crime that had been committed. Number 81613 PC Samuel Lekangeng. On the front seat were body of Stephen Ikuwambuku, who was the driver, who was lying on the steering wheel, and on the co-driver's seat was the body of number 92634 PC Samuel Kimathi Kahikia, who was also an aide to the Honorable MP. He stated that he took several photographs of the scene, which he explained in the course of his testimony, and produced a batch of 52 photographs as prosecution exhibit 52 alongside the report and certificate in respect thereof, dated 27 February 2015, as prosecution exhibit 53. On 17th July 2015, he stated, Sergeant Wahome of Investigation Department of CID headquarters identified to him a motor vehicle registration number KBE 464L, which was an exhibit in this case, and he took photographs of the same and its chassis number. And he stated that the motor vehicle was released back to the owner. On 28th July 2015, at Police County Headquarters, CIP Rangu of DCI identified to him motor vehicle registration number KBF 796A Nissan Saloon, which was also an exhibit prosecution witness to testify during the trial as a whole as required by the authority of Ketio Kali and others as a Republic, 1965 EA 555, and also considered the submissions made by both the prosecution and the defense. Counts numbers 1, 2, and 3 herein are closely interrelated, and therefore I will consider them side by side. The 3 counts are similar, are of similar charge, and point for determination with regard to each of the 3 counts is whether the prosecution has proved beyond reasonable doubt that the accused persons or any one of them committed the alleged offense of robbery with violence, contrary to section 296, subsection 2 of the Penal Code, as alleged in the particulars of offense to each of the said counts. From the evidence on record, particularly the evidence of PW1 and PW2, there is indication that at the material time of the alleged incident to which count number 1 relates, motor vehicle registration number KBF 796A Nissan Sunny Beige in color was registered in the name of PW2, and at the material time was being driven by PW1. From the evidence of the said 2 witnesses, PW1 bought the motor vehicle and had it registered in the name of PW2, who was his wife. On the material day, the two were together, and as PW2 went to buy vegetables and groceries, PW1 remained in the vehicle where it was parked, where a group of 4 men entered the vehicle after one of them, who was armed with a rifle, ordered him to open the door and ordered him to go to the back seat. One of those people drove the vehicle, and he described in his testimony, summarized in detail in this judgment here in above, and took away his mobile phone, make Nokia and Huawei, and also gas cylinder that was in the vehicle. The said vehicle, from the evidence of PW6, was the one that was used to intercept the motor vehicle registration number KBE 464L, where PW3 and PW4 were, and were ordered to move to the rear, and were robbed and eventually abandoned at the home of PW8 on the same night of the incident. PW6 witnessed the incident, and then PW7 was notified and proceeded to the scene, where he found the vehicle registration number KBF 796A abandoned at the gate, and inside the motor vehicle they found PW1 inside the boot, and then PW1 narrated what had transpired. PW18 also arrived at that scene and found PW1 already rescued from the boot of the vehicle. From the evidence of PW1, PW3, and PW4, 4 people robbed PW1. And again, from the evidence of PW3 and PW4, the latter two were also robbed by 4 people. Robberies were preceded by carjacking of respective vehicles in which the respective victims were, and victims eventually abandoned. While PW1 was abandoned while inside the boot of the car registration number KBF 796A, from which the robbers came from, and hijacked the car in which PW3 and PW4 were. PW3 and PW4, after being robbed, were abandoned near the homestead of PW8 and sought refuge at the home of PW8 after the robbers drove off. The robberies took place, from the evidence on record, as part of the same transaction. There were 4 robbers in each of the incidents. From the evidence of the victims who testified as PW1, PW3, and PW4, one of the robbers had a big gun. The big gun was identified in the course of the trial and produced as prosecution exhibit number 3. PW4 testified that the person who had the gun was the first accused person hearing. From the evidence of PW1, PW3, and PW5 in relation to identification at the identification parade, the evidence of PW1 was that he did identify the second accused. PW3 identified the second, the third, and the fourth accused persons. PW4 identified the first, the second, and the fourth accused persons. And PW1 and PW3 also stated on cross-examination that they were not asked at the time of reporting the incidents to give description of the robbers. I will come back to this in the course of this statement. The evidence of PW4 was that the first accused is the one who had the big gun during the robbery incident. The testimony of PW4 was that by the time she jumped to the back seat as ordered, the fourth accused was already in the vehicle seated on the back seat and is the one who asked her for her phone. Each of those victims described in their testimonies as summarized herein above the words the assailants uttered, which they asked them to utter during the identification parades. The respective identification parade forms wherein the said PW1, PW3, and PW4 participated as witnesses were produced as prosecution exhibits 1, 6, and 8. The evidence of PW6, who conducted the identification parades, where PW1, PW3, and PW4 participated as witnesses, was in tandem with the testimonies of those witnesses with regard to conduct of the parades. PW19 conducted identification parades where the third accused was identified by PW3, while PW1 was not able to identify anyone in the parade he participated as witness. And PW19 produced the parade form in that regard as prosecution exhibit 5. PW19 also conducted identification parade for the first accused, wherein PW4 participated as a witness. It stated PW4 identified the first accused person hearing, and he produced the parade form as prosecution makes bit number 8. The evidence of PW19 is also consistent with the testimony of PW1 and PW4 with regard to the identification parade. The first accused person stated that he took part in the identification parade and that he was not identified and he could not have signed the parade form because he had an injury on his hand, which he sustained during his arrest. And the second, third, fourth, and fourth accused persons denied having taken part in any identification parade. I have perused the testimonies of the said accused persons and noticed that the testimonies are majorly focused on absolute denial to an extent that the testimonies of each of the said first, second, third, and fourth accused persons have internal inconsistencies which calls for careful weighing of the same alongside other evidence on record as a whole as required. The court is guided by the decision of superior courts with regard to how inconsistencies in evidence are to be treated in a criminal trial, one of which is the case of Patrick Analo and another versus Republic 2019, Kika 162 KNR, where the Court of Appeal stated as follows, and I quote, in John Nyagajuki and 4 others versus Republic, this court explained the law on contradictions and inconsistencies in evidence as follows. Quote, in certain criminal cases, particularly those which involve many witnesses, discrepancies are in many instances inevitable. But what is important is whether the discrepancies are of such a nature as will create a doubt as to the guilt of the accused. If so, then the prosecution would not have discharged burden squarely on it to prove the case beyond any reasonable doubt. However, where discrepancies in the evidence do not affect an otherwise proved case against an accused, a court is entitled to overlook those discrepancies and proceed to convict the accused. The discrepancies in the evidence in the matter before us are, in our view, of a minor nature, considering the facts and circumstances of the case. End of quote. Also, in the case of Twaigani, Alfred versus Uganda, Criminal Appeal number 139 of 2001-2003 UGCA, it says, it was stated as follows, open quotes, with regard to contradictions in the prosecution's case, the law as set out in numerous authorities is that grave contradictions, unless satisfactorily explained, will usually, but not necessarily, lead to the evidence of a witness being rejected. The court will ignore minor contradictions unless the court thinks that they point to deliberate untruthfulness, and if they do not reflect the main substance of the prosecution's case. Unquote. The testimonies of PW1, PW3, and PW4 with regard to identification evidence is consistent with the testimonies of PW16 and PW19, who conducted identification parades. A careful perusal of the evidence on record reveals that these witnesses were quite consistent in their narration of events that took place during the material night. During the incidents of robbery, the persons who robbed them were not previously known to any of them. From the evidence on record, the witnesses each asked those in the parade to utter specific words which they stated they uttered during respective robberies, and it was based on the utterances of such words that they were able to identify the suspects in the respective parade. This was therefore a case of voice identification. The words from the evidence of PW16 and PW7 and PW19 were given by the witnesses to those officers who conducted the respective parades, and the witnesses indicated to those officers they could be able to identify the suspects upon uttering the words. From the evidence on record, as summarized herein, those identified were so identified upon uttering specific words. Had it been an identification solely on physical appearance, the witnesses would have been expected to have beforehand given description of the assailants. That would be in line with the decision of the Court of Appeal in the case of Victor Mwenda Ulinge vs. Republic, 2014 Kika at 710, where the Court of Appeal says, open quote, Geogre vs. Republic. In Geogre vs. Republic, this court held that before an identification parade is held, a witness should be asked to give description of persons sought to be identified. Ideally, that advanced description of a person ought to be in writing, and the same, together with the parade forms, availed to the trial court so that it can compare the description given of the accused and quote. With regard to identification by voice, in the case of Geogre vs. Republic, when 1985 KLR, it was stated, quote, evidence of voice identification is receivable and admissible in evidence, and it can, depending on the circumstances, carry as much weight as visual identification. In receiving such evidence, care would be necessary to ensure that it was the accused person's voice, that the witness was familiar with it and recognized it, and that the conditions obtaining at the time it was made were such that there was no mistake in testifying to that which was said and who had said it. The robbery incidents took place on the night of 6th and 9th of February 2015. Identification parades were conducted on 15th February 2015. After about 8 days from the date of the said robberies, memories would not fade up in about a week. And from the evidence on record, the robberies were in the vehicle where the victims who had been carjacked were. For some time during the night, they were talking, and all the witnesses were interested in the specific words which were spoken specifically, commands they received during the incidences. From the evidence adduced, by the victims who testified as PW1, PW2, and PW4, in each of the PW1, PW3, and PW4, in each of the robbery incidents, the robbers were 4 men, and they respectively described in their testimonies how those 4 men entered the respective vehicles. From the evidence of PW22, PW30, and PW31, who were part of the team involved in the arrests, the female suspects came in at the point of arrests. The 5th and the 6th accused persons, from the evidence on record, were arrested on the same day the other accused persons were arrested. And from the evidence on record, the 5th and 6th accused persons are not sufficiently linked to the robberies, and none of the said 5th and 6th accused persons herein is neither principal offender within the meaning of Section 20 of the Penal Code, nor a joint offender within the meaning of Section 21 of the Penal Code. With regard to the 7th accused, no identification parade was conducted wherein he was lined up as a suspect. There is no evidence that he was spotted anywhere within the vicinity of the robberies that took place on the material night. From the evidence of PW14, PW15, PW30, and the testimony of the 7th accused person, the 7th accused used to charge phones for other people in his house. He had known the 5th accused person for 3 years, and the 5th accused person introduced to him the 3rd accused person as a husband, and he stated that the 3rd accused is the one who gave him the phone to charge. That was the morning of 7th February 2015, a day following the night of the robberies, which took place on the night of 6th and 7th of February 2015. The testimony of the 5th accused person is in tandem with the testimonies of PW14 and PW15, which corroborate the same, and his testimony is consistent with what he told the police at the time of his arrest, which is also corroborated by the testimonies of PW14 and PW15. On the issue of accomplice evidence, The Court of Appeal had this to say in the case of John Karungi Mbirire versus Republic 2015 Kika at 107, and I quote, on the issue of accomplice evidence which the appellant contends was improperly acted upon, this court in Stephen Kelang, Mahalale and another versus Republic 2010 EKR observed, open quotes, the position in law with regard to accomplice is this. An accomplice is a competent witness against an accused person. However, such evidence needs corroboration. In the case of Uganda versus Shah, the Court of Appeal for East Africa in dealing with the question of accomplice evidence rendered itself as follows, to quote, the second and third grounds of appeal were that the learned judge had erred in holding that there was no independent evidence incriminating either the first or third respondents corroborating the accomplice evidence against them. The facts relied on by the prosecution were finding of 113.5 bags of Arabica coffee on the Kiriri estate where only Robusta was grown, and the expert evidence was that the coffee was found similar in quantity of the stolen coffee. The learned magistrate held that these facts were capable of amounting to corroboration. Evidence to be corroborated must be independent, and it must implicate or tend to implicate the individual accused of the offense. It is clear from that authority that accomplice evidence is admissible, and also that if believed, it might be relied upon to found a conviction if corroborated by independent and admissible evidence. End of quote. It is also in evidence adduced during the trial that the seventh accused person is the one who led to the arrest of the third accused person at the time of arrest. Sorry, let me read again. It is also in evidence adduced during the trial that the seventh accused person is the one who led to the arrest of the third accused person, who at the time of arrest was in the company of fourth accused person, who then led to the arrest of the first accused and the sixth accused person, and recoveries were made during the arrest. Can that fact that the fourth accused person led to the arrest of the other accused persons, and the fact that recoveries made during those arrests be used against the fourth accused person hearing? The Court of Appeal in the case of Ahmad Abolafadi Mohammed and another versus Republic 2018 Kika at 743 held, and I quote, when Karukenya and 4 others versus Republic was decided in July 1984, Section 31 of the Evidence Act expressly allowed admissibility of evidence discovered in consequence of information given by an accused person, whether the giving of the information amounted to a confession or not. The provision, whose side note read information from accused leading to discovery of facts provided thus, quote, notwithstanding the provisions of sections 26, 28, and 29 of this Act, when any fact is deposed as to discovered in consequence of information received from a person accused of any offense, so much of such information, whether it amounts to a confession or not, as relates distinctly to the fact thereby discovered, may be proved. End of quote. However, in 2003, the Criminal Law Amendment Act number 5 of 2003 affected fundamental changes as to the law on confessions and admissibility of information from an accused person, leading to discovery of evidence. Among the changes, a new section 25A was introduced into the Evidence Act, which made confessions inadmissible unless made in court. In addition, Section 103 of the 2003 Act repealed Section 31 of the Evidence Act, meaning that henceforth information from an accused person leading to discovery of evidence was not admissible. As this court noted in Doya, Kitsao, Alliance Katibu, for the Republic 2015, EKLR, those changes were intended to address the then egregious abuses and irregularities arising from confessions taken by the police. Practical challenges in the implementation of the new law, however, led to further amendments in 2017 through Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment Act number 7 of 2007, which allowed confessions to be made before a judge, a magistrate, or a police officer, other than the investigating officer, being an officer not below the rank of Chief Inspector of Police, and a third party of the suspect's choice. It also allowed the Attorney General, in consultation with the Law Society of Kenya, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and other suitable bodies, to make rules governing the taking of extrajudicial confessions, leading to promulgation of evidence out of court confessions rules 2009. What is very clear in all this is that Section 31 of the Evidence Act, or a variation thereof, was not reenacted, meaning that information from an accused person leading to discovery of evidence is inadmissible outside a confession. This was the position that this court took, for example, in Kennedy Otieno Oden versus Republic 2008 EKR. In this appeal, it was never the prosecution's case that the appellant had confessed committing the offenses that they were charged with. Accordingly, we are satisfied that the two courts below erred in admitting the evidence that allegedly led to the discovery of the RDX. End of quotes. There is clear and consistent evidence that the third accused was in possession of phones stolen during robbery, escorted by the fifth accused person, and took the same to the seventh accused person to charge it for him. That is proved beyond reasonable doubt, even on the face of denials by the third and fifth accused persons. The Court of Appeal in the case of William Ougo Arunda, hitherto referred to as Patrick Odworo Ching versus Republic 2022 Kika at 23, had this to say with regard to the doctrine of recent possession, open quotes. We start with the question whether the doctrine of recent possession was properly invoked. As regards the circumstances under which the doctrine of recent possession may apply, in Athman Salim Athman versus Republic 2016 EKR, the court held that, open quotes, the essence of the doctrine is that when an accused person is found in possession of recently stolen property, and is unable to offer any reasonable explanation as to how he came to be in possession of that property, presumption of fact arises that he is either the thief or receiver. The circumstances under which the doctrine will apply were considered in Isaac Nganga Kahiga, alias Peter Nganga Kahiga versus Republic, criminal application number 272 of 2005, where the court stated, quote, it is right that before a court of law can rely on the doctrine of recent possession as a basis of conviction in a criminal case, the possession must be positively proved. In other words, there must be positive proof, first, that the property was found with the suspect, secondly, that the property is positively the property of the complainant, thirdly, that the property was stolen from the complainant, and lastly, that the property was recently stolen from the complainant. The proof as to time, as has been stated over and over again, will depend on the easiness with which the stolen property can move from one to the other. End of quotes. The evidence of record, particularly the evidence of PW14 and PW15 and PW30 and the seventh accused person, exonerates the seventh accused person and proves the doctrine of recent possession as against the third accused. In the William Oungo Arunda case quoted above, stolen property was found in possession of an appellant within hours of occurrence of incidents of theft. like is the case here, where the third accused was in possession of phones stolen from victims of robbery in the morning following the night of the robberies. And the Court of Appeal stated, and I quote, as stated by the Supreme Court of Uganda in Geogre Muchai and another versus Uganda, Criminal Appeal number 1 of 1997, that open quote, it ought to be realized that where evidence of recent possession of stolen property is proved beyond reasonable doubt, it raises a very strong presumption of participation in the stealing, so that if there is no innocent explanation of the possession, the evidence is even stronger and more dependable than eyewitness evidence of identification in a nocturnal event. This is especially so because inevitably the former is independently verifiable, while the latter solely depends on the credibility of the eyewitness. End of quote. On the material night of the robbery, from the evidence of PW20, the third accused person sourced for services of PW20, who operates a taxi, and he explained how the third accused guided him to where he picked other persons whom he dropped at respective places as directed. And then after dropping them, he realized that those people left a bad-smelling, N-shaped metal in the vehicle. The metal was later established to be part of a gun, a rifle recovered from the house where the first accused person and the sixth accused person were arrested that had L-shaped component missing from it. The evidence of PW4 was that during the incident of the material night, the first accused is the one who had the big gun, while the seventh accused person explained how the third accused in the company of the fifth accused person took to him phone for charging. There is no explanation from the third accused person how he came by the phone which had been robbed the previous night. The doctrine of recent possession shifts the evidential burden once the prosecution has discharged the legal burden, as it has done in this case. And while there is no legal burden on the accused to prove innocence, there is nothing to displace application of the doctrine of recent possession. There is more than identification evidence against the first, second, third, and fourth accused persons here, insofar as the first, second, and third counts are concerned. There is also strong suspicion that the fifth and the sixth accused persons may have been passive members of the same gang, but suspicion, however strong, is not enough. Those who were robbed on the material night did not see any lady amongst the robbers. Neither did PW20, the taxi driver, carry any lady in his car on the material night. The seventh accused has been exonerated by his own evidence and the evidence of PW14, 15, and 30. And therefore, in my finding, the first, second, and third counts have been proved beyond reasonable doubt against the first, the second, the third, and fourth accused persons, and not proved beyond reasonable doubt against the fifth, sixth, and seventh accused persons herein. Counts numbers 4 and 5 are also closely related, and therefore I will deal with them side by side. The point for determination with regard to the fourth count is whether the prosecution has proved beyond reasonable doubt that the first and the sixth accused persons herein were unlawfully found in possession of firearm, namely G3 rifle, serial number KP 6927317 without firearm certificate. And the point for determination with regard to the fifth count is whether the prosecution has proved beyond reasonable doubt that the first and sixth accused persons were unlawfully found in possession of 7 rounds of 7.62mm caliber ammunition without a firearm certificate, as alleged in the particulars of offense to the same count, numbers 4 and 5 respectively. The evidence of PW29 was that he is a police officer and was issued with the G3 rifle, serial number 6927317 on 22nd of October 2013, and the same was entered in the register as entry number 1041. he testified that he was robbed of the said rifle while on duty on the same day at night, where he was providing security to telecom personnel who were on duty. The evidence of PW22, PW30, PW31, and PW36 was that the first accused and the sixth accused at the time of their arrest were in the same house. The sixth accused person opened the door, and then the first accused was found in the house hiding under the bed. The first accused testified that he was not arrested in that house, and also stated that it is not true that the sixth accused person is the one who opened the door. If he was not there, how could he say that the sixth accused did not open the door? The sixth accused person also in a testimony denied. The evidence on record adduced by the prosecution is, however, to the effect that the recoveries made from the house at the time of arrest of the first and the sixth accused persons were documented in an inventory which was produced in evidence. The recoveries were also produced in evidence. PW11 and PW12 were the persons who left the house to the sixth accused person, and the landlord to the sixth accused person respectively. The recoveries from the evidence of record were submitted to ballistic expert for examination, and the evidence of the ballistic expert confirms that they are a firearm and ammunition respectively. While there is an inconsistency with regard to whether the bag where the gun was found was in the kitchen or the bathroom, it is a minor one expected to arise in a recovery made during such an operation, and this is taken care of by the authority of Maingane Alfred versus Uganda, already cited here before. There is no evidence that any of the first or the sixth accused person had a license to hold either the firearm or the ammunition. And therefore, from the evidence on record, there is proof of counts numbers 4 and 5 against the first accused person and the sixth accused person beyond reasonable doubt. Equally, counts numbers 6 and 7 are also closely related, and therefore I will consider the same side by side. With regard to count number 6, the point for determination is whether the prosecution has proved beyond reasonable doubt that the second accused person herein was found in unlawful possession of Seska pistol, serial number G4726 without a firearm certificate, and the point for determination with regard to the 7th count is whether the prosecution has proved beyond reasonable doubt that the second accused was found in unlawful possession of 15 rounds of 9mm caliber ammunition without a firearm certificate. From the evidence on record, including the evidence of PW22, PW26, PW30, and PW36, a pistol, serial number G4726, had been issued to a police officer who was the bodyguard to the deceased Geogre Muchai, as per the register produced as prosecution exhibit 28. And that firearm was recovered from the house where the second accused person was arrested, together with the rounds of ammunition in question. The evidence of record is that the same were forwarded to the examiner, who adduced evidence that he examined the same and found the same to be firearm and ammunition respectively. PW6 testified that he had rented the house to the second accused person hearing, who was using a different name, and that he came to know his real name after the arrest. The second accused testified that nothing was recovered from him and that he was not arrested in that house. The denial by the second accused is faced by credible evidence adduced by prosecution with regard to his arrest and recovery. The testimony that the police were out to arrest people so as to meet deadline of 72 hours deadline of 72 hours set by the then Minister for Interior would really not convince. Otherwise, some of those traced during investigations, like PW14 and PW15, would not have been witnesses. The evidence adduced by the prosecution proves that the second accused was arrested from the house in question, where the firearm and ammunition that are the subject of count numbers 6 and 7 were recovered. There is no evidence that the second accused person had the requisite certificate to hold the firearm and the ammunition, and I therefore find counts numbers 6 and 7 are falsely have been proved beyond reasonable doubt as required. With regard to count number 8, the point for determination is whether the fifth accused was found in unlawful possession of 2 rounds of 9mm ammunition without a firearm certificate, as alleged in the particulars of offense to count number 8 aforesaid. The fifth accused in her testimony stated that there was nothing recovered from her at the time of arrest. The evidence adduced by the prosecution is that in the house where the fifth accused was taken, there were 2 rounds of ammunition recovered and an inventory prepared and signed by those present, including the fifth accused person hearing. The said inventory was produced as prosecution exhibit number 33, and it is signed by the fifth accused. And the report of ballistic expert produced as prosecution exhibit 14 confirms the same as ammunition. There is no evidence adduced to show that the fifth accused was at the material time a holder of the requisite certificate, and therefore find that the 8th count has been proved against the fifth accused beyond reasonable doubt as required. In summary, for the foregoing, I make the following findings under section 215 of the Criminal Procedure Code. A, the first, second, third, and fourth accused persons are each guilty of each of counts numbers 1, 2, and 3 herein before first mentioned, and each of the said first, second, third, and fourth accused persons is each convicted of each of the said first, second, and third counts. B, each of the fifth, sixth, and seventh accused persons is not guilty of each of the said counts numbers 1, 2, and 3, and is each acquitted of the said counts numbers 1, 2, and 3. C, the first and the sixth accused persons, each guilty of count numbers 4 and 5, and each of the said first and sixth accused persons is convicted of the said counts 4 and 5. D, the second accused is guilty of counts numbers 6 and 7 aforesaid, and is convicted of each of the said counts numbers 6 and 7. E, the fifth accused is guilty of count number 8 and is accordingly convicted of the said count number 8. The seventh accused person, who has been acquitted of all the 3 counts he is facing, is ordered to be set to liberty unless he is otherwise lawfully held. That is the end of the statement.
Much obliged.
So the judgment is typed. I was making corrections as I was reading, typographical error, which I'm going to correct, and by 4 p.m. we will have it online.
Most of that. On behalf of the 7th accused person, we really need to appreciate this honorable court for the efforts and for the efforts that have been employed in preparing and delivering this judgment, which was not easy. We really appreciate when we don't take it for granted. We also appreciate that justice has been done. It was our wish that we could have attended the next session for mitigation if there was a provision in law for compensation and remedies for persons like the 7th accused person. However, Your Honor, this judgment will definitely, with other judgments and other efforts, will inform initiatives for law reform to that effect. Your Honor. We also appreciate that this decision is a well-reasoned decision, backed or founded on law.
Correct, Professor.
Yes.
Don't go that way, because your plan was not alone. If we go that way, we start having comments, divergent comments, and it can be a dangerous way to go.
We appreciate Your Honor.
Yes.
We were properly guided. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
You're welcome. So, records.
Your Honor, we do have records for some of the accused persons. The first to the fourth. If the court allows us, we can come back, Your Honor, on a different date for purposes of availing the records and for sentence hearing. Your Honor, maybe, I don't know how the court is placed next week, you can maybe come back on Thursday. The 19th, Your Honor.
Yes, we would have wished to deal with this matter much earlier because the prejudice that my client is suffering, he would like to, I think, immediately start dealing with an issue of an appeal, which is a right available to him. So the earlier we deal with that, the much faster he'll be able to deal with the issue of an appeal, Your Honor.
What if we mention that virtually on the 18th?
18th is okay.
That is convenient, Your Honor.
18 at 2. It's okay.
Your Honor, the 18th, I'll have a challenge. I have an engagement, Your Honor, that I have to attend to at 2.
If we do at noon,
Very well. Noon is okay. Noon is okay. At 2, I have a
noon, you're okay.
Noon is okay, Your Honor.
Your Honor.